Um, I would like to introduce Dr. Larson from Marvelous Minds. She will be leading our webinar tonight about setting your child up for success, healthy mind, healthy body. All right, take it away, Dr. Larson.
All right, well, thank you for having me. Too often in this busy world, we ignore the very foundations of mental health. Today, we're going to be discussing the importance of sleep, eating well, movement, and managing screen time, and the effects each have on your child's mood and behavior. We're going to learn how to encourage your family towards optimal physical and mental health. So to set our kids up for success, we really need to prioritize these areas, which again are sleep, nutrition, movement, and screen time. So why do we talk about sleep? As a pediatric neuropsychologist, it's my job to help families figure out why your kids are struggling. And I'm struggling with my media right now. Here we go. So whether people come in because their kids have a hard time focusing in school, they're having temper tantrums when they're told no, or they're having trouble maybe retaining new information that they're learning in school, there's an element that I always make sure to assess, and that is sleep. Sleep is one of the most important foundations for a healthy brain and body. And it's also one of the most overlooked and ignored. So why is this? You know, we live in a culture where being busy and productive is a sign of success. We constantly prioritize getting more done than feeling well. You know, and we have this idea that, well, if I just double up on my caffeine, you know, it doesn't matter if I'm tired, right? So what we're doing is failing to acknowledge all the systemic and additive effects of missing out on sleep. So what are the implications of poor sleep? So kids and adolescents who average less than 8 hours of sleep per night are considered sleep deprived. These children perform almost indistinguishably from kids with ADHD on measures of attention, response control, inhibition, and executive functions. They have a reduction in the ability to remember positive memories, causing mainly negative memories to be retained. So people with chronic sleep debt have higher incidences of depression, anxiety, alcohol and drug problems, sexual acting out, cigarette smoking, emotional outbursts, and suicidal behaviors. Suicidal behaviors in sleep-deprived children and adolescents are significantly higher, even for those who are not depressed or using substances. Just being sleep-deprived increases those risky behaviors. Kids who are sleep deprived have difficulty differentiating between hunger and satiation, which causes appetite issues and metabolism malfunction and weight gain. They perform lower on tests and show a decrease in overall academic performance. They have a higher incidence of sports-related injuries and a higher rate of car accidents, which is the #1 cause of death for teenagers. Brain impairment of insufficient sleep is similar to being intoxicated on alcohol, which reduces your reaction time, awareness of traffic, and the ability to remain alert. So sending your kid out to drive in a car when they are sleep deprived is just as bad as if they have been drinking alcohol. So what happens during sleep? Although our bodies are resting, our brains are actively engaged in providing survival functions like eliminating toxins, repairing muscles, creating new neurons and pathways, conserving and storing energy, modulating our immune system, and managing our executive functions and psychological states. Sleep allows us to consolidate our memories, and that does include all the new concepts that kids are exposed to at school. So said in a different way, sleep allows our kids to learn, to pay attention, to fight off disease, to heal from injuries, to feel good about themselves, and to grow into adults. That's a lot, right? Sleep is very, very important. So the problem with sleep with adolescents is teenagers have a biological tendency to go to sleep as much as 2 hours later than younger children. The natural time for sleep on average of a teenager is 10:45 p.m. and the brain remains in the sleep mode until about 8 o'clock in the morning. Kids are biologically more alert in the evening. It's not just that they're telling us, oh, I want to stay up. I want to, I want to be with my friends at night. I want to be on the phone. Like they're biologically predisposed to be awake later. Um, so with the way that we have our school system set up, this makes it almost impossible for kids to get the amount of sleep that they need, which is 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And they have to wake up so early for school. Another problem is that teenagers don't dream as much as they once did. So kids wake up for school during the time that they would normally be having REM sleep. And REM sleep is super important because it helps us problem solve. It helps us process our emotions and incorporate new memories into long-term storage. So research has shown that when we're deprived of REM sleep, we are more tense, we have more anxiety and depression, we have poorer concentration, our coordination decreases, we gain weight, and when it's really bad and we're really deprived of REM sleep, we can even hallucinate. So some school districts have used this research to inform their policy and have later start times for high school students. I think that's a really fantastic idea. There's great research out there. CDC, the American Medical Association, and the American Academy of Pediatrics have all issued statements that high schools should start later. Unfortunately, we don't tend to listen to them very well. I keep going the wrong way. Sorry about that. All right. So how much sleep does your kid need? Okay. So here I have everyone from newborns to older adults and the number of hours of sleep that on average are required. Okay. So your school age kids should be getting 9 to 11 hours of sleep. Teenagers, 8 to 10 hours. And I would bet that most of you listening right now, your kids aren't getting nearly that. The best way to guide, or the best guide to know if your kid is getting enough sleep is excessive sleepiness during the day. If you are tired and sleepy during the day, you probably need more sleep at night. The problem with that is kids and teenagers, they don't recognize signs of daytime sleepiness. So we really need to help them because they're so used to feeling that way that they may just feel like they're in a bad mood. They're irritable, they're frustrated, they're upset when really it's sleep deprivation. So we need to help them realize that those feelings are not normal. They're actually symptoms of sleep deprivation. I went the wrong way again. Look at that. Okay. So what we want to do is find out what motivates our kids to help them get better sleep, right? If they are an athlete and they are super motivated by their sports performance, or their grades are really important to them, or their overall physical health, or maybe their emotional well-being, whatever it is that is going to be important to your child, that's what you want to use as the reason why they need better sleep, because kids need a reason to change their behaviors. Okay. If they're athletes, you will be a better athlete. You will have better endurance. You will have better hand-eye coordination if you are sleeping well. If your grades are super important to you, then explain to your kids about the cognitive deficits that come with being sleep deprived. We can't pay attention as well. We can't learn new things. So maybe you go to class and you listen to a lecture, you go to sleep and you don't sleep enough, you're not going to incorporate what you learned into your long-term memory, meaning that information is not going to be available when it's time to test. So tips and tricks for helping your kids and yourselves get better sleep. You want to consider your environment. Bedrooms should be dark, cool, and quiet. Even small amounts of light and heat can reduce your sleep hormones. So maybe you want to help your kids cover up their clock lights or keep the door shut, take a blanket off, or even use earplugs or white noise. If everyone else is awake and they're making noise in the house and your kid's trying to fall asleep, that's going to be difficult for them. So some white noise can help. We want to help calm their bodies. When you go to bed, if you close your eyes and relax your muscles, you want to stay as still as you can. You want to test yourself to see how long you can stay still, and then wriggle around and move your muscles, and then try to stay super still again. If you teach your kids to do that, you'll be amazed to find that the kids can actually fall asleep much quicker. They don't know that you can't sleep if you're moving around. And so by being explicit about what your body feels like when you're super still or when you're moving around, that can be really helpful. Calming your thoughts. We want to repeat calming thoughts to ourselves about going to sleep, or creating calm pictures or images in your head. If any of you were here for the last It Takes a Village, I talked about the happy place. This is a great time to practice your happy place, because what you're doing is creating a calm image in your mind. So kids and teenagers need coaching about different getting to sleep strategies. So it sounds simple, but a lot of kids don't know like what to put in their head when they're trying to sleep. So we can teach them calming self-talk. Things like, I can do this. I'm getting better at falling asleep. I'm gonna get enough sleep to feel rested in the morning. Using their imagination to visualize a calm scene, or even play a mini movie in their head. If they're reading a book or they have a favorite movie, they can go over scenes from the book or the movie in their head, and that can help them to fall asleep. Some people get really anxious about not falling asleep, and they need to create calm thoughts. Things like, my muscles are getting more and more relaxed. I can fall asleep now. That sort of calming thoughts, those sort of calming thoughts can really help. So it may seem like it doesn't make sense, but getting up and moving. If you've been laying in bed for 15 minutes with your eyes closed and you're really still and you still can't sleep, get up and do something boring for a few minutes and then try again. You don't want to go on screens. You don't want to do, start reading something exciting, but just something boring and monotonous. Maybe organize your sock drawer or something. But nobody wants to stay in bed for hours trying to fall asleep. It's agonizing and counterproductive. It can be really convenient and comforting for us as parents to know our kid is in bed and they're safe. But if they are laying in bed and they can't fall asleep and they're miserable, we are helping them form a negative association with bed, right? And we do not want to do that. We want bedtime and being in bed, the physical place of bed, to be calming and enjoyable, not a place of stress. So if they are not sleeping, we want to remove them from that place and help them to relax. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, so we definitely want to guide our kids through this kind of process if they're not able to fall asleep, and helping them relax and try again. But we want to get to the point where they can do that independently. And that's one of those skills that will keep the kids out, from like coming into our bedrooms every night because they can't sleep. So we really want to work on those skills. Reset your clock. So start by waking up earlier in the morning. And once the kids are up, we need to alert their bodies. It's daytime immediately. So turn on some bright lights, open the blinds, eat breakfast, even some light exercise. If you've got some time, throw some jumping jacks at them. By resetting the body clock early in the morning, it will help them to fall asleep at an appropriate time in that evening. Getting physical. This is a great way of preparing our bodies for sleep is during the day, get some exercise. Okay. We want our kids to, play sports, to move around, even incidental movement, playing at the park, running around the kitchen, all of those things help to get the body ready for sleep later. No naps. This might seem counterintuitive, but we want to make sure that unless they're very young, that they're not taking naps during the day, especially if you have problems going to sleep. So managing screen time is another big one. Devices should be turned off and removed from the bedroom a half an hour to an hour before bed. Looking at the blue light from phones and laptops decreases the production of melatonin, which is the sleep hormone that helps us feel sleepy. This is one of the hardest things to do, especially with older kids and teens, is to convince them that they shouldn't be on the phone or their iPads or whatever until they fall asleep. But it is really, really important. Kids are not going to be internally motivated to do this. So we really need to set the structure and set the supports for our kids so that, screens go off at a certain time. All devices go to a charging station somewhere in the house. It could be the kitchen, somewhere where the kids aren't going to have access to those devices. Having a snack. So sleepy foods, things with high glycemic carbohydrates, those are good sleepy foods. We think of like tryptophan and turkey, like that's a good thing for trying to fall asleep. A banana or low-fat yogurt, those are both going to be good, healthy snacks that will help induce sleepiness. We want to stay away from high fats and spicy foods, which can actually make us awake. Some final thoughts on sleep. It's hard work to change your sleep patterns. It's hard work to change the architecture of your sleep to get better REM sleep. Remind your kids this is hard work, right? Just like managing our physical fitness or learning to read or any other really tricky area of life, it takes time, it takes practice, it takes effort, and it takes sacrifice. Remind your kids these are lifelong skills. To be able to get good sleep is something that they will always need. And if you're still struggling with your kids' sleep or with your sleep, don't be afraid to reach out for help. Okay, your pediatrician or psychologist might suggest keeping a sleep diary, or even reaching out to a sleep specialist for an overnight sleep study if necessary. There's lots of ways that we can help facilitate better sleep. All right, nutrition. So why is it so hard to get our kids to eat well? Healthy eating takes a lot of time, forethought, and preparation, right? How many times do we hear, oh, you should meal plan on the weekends and prep all your food and do that? Those are great ideas. But when you are a working parent, those are really hard things to do. Sometimes we go for the fast stuff because it's easy, because they got to eat something and we're exhausted. Junk food tastes good. It's supposed to. And we're biologically programmed to fill up on fats and carbs, and junk food also has a social element to it. Kids want to be like their friends, and kids are eating Doritos and ice cream and stuff. And so they want to do the same thing that their peers are doing. All right. So how does nutrition impact our emotions? So all the research these days is about the gut-brain axis, or GBA. This is a communication pathway between the brain and the gut. Neurotransmitters, hormones, and immunological factors that directly impact your mental health are released from the gut and sent to the brain. So for a long time, we thought it was the opposite, that the brain was controlling the gut, but we're really finding that it's the symbiotic relationship that is going both ways. So stress responses like inflammation are sent from the brain back down to the gut and mess with our digestive tract. We know that this imbalance in the gut microbiota actually causes or exacerbates mental illnesses like anxiety and depression. This link that they're finding is absolutely critical, because 1 in 4 adults and almost 1 in 5 children suffer from anxiety or depression. Okay. I'm just going to keep going the wrong way with my slides. All right. So how do we know what is healthy? So there have been a lot of public service announcements that say, drink lots of milk. Milk is good for you. And then it's like, don't drink milk. It's bad for you. We're the only organism that drinks another organism's milk, right? Eat carbs, don't eat carbs, eat fats, don't eat fats, right? So there's like all these messages that we're getting that are conflicting and confusing, right? So it's pretty overwhelming to try and sift through and find truth in any of that. So we want to keep it simple. We need proteins, we need fats, and we need carbs. We need them all. We can't cut any of those out. And how to get the highest quality of those would be to have as many whole, simple, and natural, unprocessed forms of these things. Okay, we don't want fillers, we don't want preservatives, we don't want foods that have been processed. All right, so proteins. This is my dog Thor, by the way. He's very cute. Proteins can be considered mood-boosting building blocks. Proteins are the basis for neurotransmitters. Those are the chemical messengers that regulate our thoughts and our emotional states. Proteins keep us full longer, which helps to curb cravings for other foods. Usually when we crave something, it's processed sugary carbs that we want to ingest. And those are the kind of snacks that trigger anxiety and depressive responses. So things like eggs, turkey, almonds, those are great sources of protein. If you are a vegetarian or vegan, seitan, tofu, tempeh, and edamame are all soybean-based proteins. Quinoa, lentils, chickpeas, and other beans are also excellent sources of proteins when you do not want meat. All right, carbohydrates. So carbs, and when we don't have them, this is what messes with our blood sugar and causes hormone imbalance and makes us feel hangry, right? That hangry feeling is a direct result of the imbalance in our hormones from a lack of carbohydrates. So some great ways to get healthy carbs: potatoes, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, whole grains, and you can get your whole grains from bread and pasta. Just get the whole grain varieties. Beans, legumes, dark leafy greens. These are also excellent ways of getting good whole carbs. Fats. Fats you can consider to be the stress reducers of the foods that we eat. Our brains are actually 60% fat, and good fats support brain function and integrity. Good fats facilitate the production of neurotransmitters and reduce inflammation. And if you know about inflammation, that is a process that is caused by stress, right? And so you see this relationship between fats and inflammation and stress. So we don't want to cut these out. These are very important, not just for our kids, but for us too. Great sources of healthy fats are avocados, salmon, chia, ghee. I think I said that right. It's clarified butter. These are all excellent sources of fats. Okay. So other than the three macronutrients, proteins, carbs, and fats, we also want to make sure that we're getting our vitamins and nutrients. Mood, when we think of vitamins and nutrients and mood, we think about the B spectrum. There's 8 different B vitamins, and they are all really important. So thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, pantothenic acid, biotin, pyroxidine, folate, and cobalamin. They all have different health benefits, and we need all of them. So B vitamins can be found in the dark leafy greens, legumes, and sunflower seeds. Eggs, beef, and other meats, salmon, oysters, clams, mussels, and trout, and yogurt, nutritional yeast, and fortified cereals. These are all great ways of getting all of the vitamin Bs. The other things that we think about when we think about nutrition and mental health is the adaptogens. And these are plants that are used to relieve stress and restore homeostasis. This is both very ancient knowledge and newer research. So these are things that support the adrenal glands, which are responsible for our stress response and sex hormones. They also support the entire nervous system, which is where your mood is improved, your energy is increased, and cognition is sharper. So there's a big resurgence right now in modern medicine looking at these adaptogens. And they're being used in teas, tinctures, elixirs, smoothies, snacks, desserts, soups. Some great adaptogens here are maca, some mushrooms, reishi and chaga mushrooms, ginseng, ashwagandha, rhodiola, and licorice. These are all great ways of getting some of these stress relieving adaptogens. All right, tips and tricks for nutrition. So you want to plan ahead, do the best you can, spend an hour on the weekend deciding what you want to eat, make your grocery list. If you have a chunk of time, prep as much of it as you can. You can chop all the veggies that you need for the week. You can make snack packs of your veggies so that you can grab and go. And make sure that the family members are helping out. Cooking and nutrition are life skills. So when your kids are little, have them help out. Explain to them, why you are cutting up your carrots and broccoli on the weekend so that they have healthy snacks. Let them help out with it. It can be a fun family activity to cook and prep together. If you're making something like soup or chili or pulled pork, make enough for several meals, have a meal and then freeze the rest for quick meals. When we cook with friends, it's a lot more fun. So you could have like batch cooking with your friends where, you know, somebody's making chili and somebody's making stew, and then you can share. Another shortcut, and this is one that that we use in our household, is we grill up a bunch of chicken breasts or salmon or turkey at the beginning of the week, and then we have a great lean protein source for the rest of the week. Maybe we make it into sandwiches one day or tacos or put it on a salad or whatever. But that way we know that we're getting a good lean protein throughout the week. All right. So this is a sample meal plan, and you know, it's just some ideas. Okay, I don't expect that anybody's gonna make this into their meal plan for tomorrow, but just to get some ideas of how we can incorporate some of these adaptogens and vitamins and the macronutrients we've been talking about. So maybe for breakfast, you make a smoothie with power greens and I like oat milk. I think it's delicious. Frozen fruits, hemp seeds, maca, and ice. Throw everything in a blender and you've got a delicious filling smoothie. Your first snack of the day, maybe it's yogurt with a little almonds and honey. Greek yogurt is a great source of protein. For lunch, maybe you make a sandwich out of an ancient grain wrap or a tortilla with some chicken and avocado, tomato, sunflower seeds. Serve it with a little bit of fruit and you've got a fully balanced, delicious lunch. Another snack might be edamame. Edamame with lemon peppers, quite delicious. For dinner, maybe a piece of grilled salmon with a Thai peanut sauce, some broccoli and quinoa. For an evening snack, air popped popcorn. We can use some delicious salt-free spice blends on popcorn. Penzeys, which is a local spice company, they have a Florida pepper and a Justice seasoning that are amazing. I use them all the time. And maybe for dessert, you make a chocolate mousse with the chaga and avocados. It sounds kind of gross, but it can actually be quite delicious. All right, so on to movement. Why is getting our children moving, why is that so hard these days, right? Play in general has really changed. We used to explore. We used to, you know, throw the kids outside and they would run and play and explore new things. And now it's very different. There's a lot of screens. There's a lot of isolation. We're also in an interesting time culturally where we're overprotecting our kids more than we have in previous times. So parental worry makes it difficult. There's also been an increase in allergies, ADHD, anxiety, and other reasons that play has shifted not only inside, but also to like independent activities. We're not spending as much time with friends and playing. All right, cardiovascular benefits of movement. Reduced anxiety and depression, improved mood and motivation, and an increase in positive memory formation. So several times now I've talked about positive memories. Sleep affects memory. The foods that you eat affect your memories. Movement affects your memories. We want our kids and ourselves to incorporate all of their memories And we're much more likely to incorporate positive memories when our bodies are physiologically able to do so. And that means a healthy body. Okay. We don't want our kids to just remember the bad stuff, which is what tends to happen when the body isn't ready to incorporate new memories, whether it's because of sleep deprivation or not enough exercise. I'm not going to talk about that. As I was going to start talking about the brain, and it's already late. I'm sure you guys don't want to be bored. All right. So what are the benefits of movement? Movement helps to improve our sleep. It causes better endurance, stress relief, mood improvement, increased energy and stamina. It reduces tiredness that increases mental alertness, weight reduction, and the reduction of cholesterol and increased cardiovascular fitness. Movement also helps us with distraction, right? It's fun. We get distracted by having things to do that are making us move, whether it's sports or walking with a friend or doing some yoga, right? We're distracted by some of the stuff that maybe we don't want to be thinking about. It's also excellent for self-efficacy. I know personally that when I'm on an exercise kick and I'm taking better care of myself, I feel a heck of a lot better about myself. And also social interaction. There's a lot of things you can do with other people that will incorporate exercise and movement. Further benefits of movement are increased self-esteem, weight management, and energy level. Exercise improves mental health by reducing anxiety, depression, and negative mood. It's also found to alleviate symptoms like social withdrawal. There's research done on all sorts of patients of mental illness with exercise and how 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week can significantly reduce the amount of medications that some patients need. So one thing to keep in mind, we always say 30 minutes, 3 times a week as like your baseline for movement and activity. It doesn't have to be 30 consecutive minutes. If you can get 3 10-minute walks in a day when you take your breaks at work, that counts. That helps, and it does help with all of these benefits that we're talking about. All right. Our last area is screen time. Why is this so hard? In simple terms, the games and social media and everything is designed for activation of our pleasure centers, and that causes addiction. We get a constant reward, whether we're getting likes on something that we typed in, or we're playing a game that is constantly rewarding us for continued play. These are addictive processes. We talked about how play has changed, right? Kids are on screens a lot more for entertainment purposes than they have been historically. We're also struggling with our own screen issues. Parents are, not immune to the addictive nature of the screens. So our kids see us scrolling through Facebook or, watching the news on our phones, and that becomes normal behavior, right? It's a cultural phenomenon. Our kids' brains are still developing, particularly the frontal lobes, which are responsible for executive functioning and other complex cognitive activities. Instead of being on a screen, we want to encourage our kids to spend their free time engaged in activities that boost creativity and imagination and interaction with other people. Okay, I talked before about screens not being kept in bedrooms. Family tech should be placed in an overnight location where they don't have access. Everything gets charged for the morning, and we don't have a bunch of sleepless people who have been sneaking on their screens all night. Screen time can be used as a reward. It's not necessarily a right to play video games. If you do your homework, maybe you get some video game time. It's really, really important because kids cannot self-monitor and regulate their own screen time. It's really important for us to shape and support our kids' relationship with technology because it's a huge part of growth and maturity. We have to be able to help them set the boundaries. So why is screen time such a big deal? Excessive screen time is associated with lower psychological well-being, less curiosity, lower self-control, more distractibility, more difficulty making friends, less emotional stability, more difficult to care for people with screen addictions, and the inability to complete tasks. So screen time, especially in the evenings, is associated with poorly consolidated sleep, which in turn, as we know, affects attention, mood, executive functions, and retaining new memories, right? It also prevents us from healing from injuries. Mental health issues that are associated with increased screen time include depression, anxiety, treatment by a mental health professional, medication for mental health issues, social interaction issues, sleep deficits, and attention and executive function deficits. I have a statistic for you. Among 14 to 17-year-olds, high users of screens, which is 7 or more hours a day, are more than twice as likely to have ever been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, or treated by a mental health professional. Moderate use of screens, which is 4 hours a day, is also associated with lower psychological well-being. Non-users and low users of screens do not differ in well-being. So a little bit of screen time is fine. A lot of screen time is not. Again, we have to help our kids moderate that. And associations between screen time and lower psychological well-being is much larger in adolescence. So we tend to give our kids more screen time as they're older, and that's actually not a good idea because the mental health effects of increased screen time actually increases as they age. All right, screen time and impulse control have a bidirectional relationship. So kids, by the very nature of being kids, have difficulty controlling their impulses, especially when a reward is strong, right? So that makes it really hard for a kid to be able to limit something they enjoy, like screen time. We've also found that increased screen time in children is associated with decreased inhibition. So it goes both ways. Poor impulse control is exacerbated by increased tech usage, and increased tech usage is associated with poor impulse control. So you see how that cycle just continues and continues. All right, tips and tricks for screen time. Limit everyone's screen time. This isn't something where we just do this for the kids. Not only do we want to model good screen behavior, but we also want to take care of our own brains, right? Blue light is not good for parents any more than it is for children. It messes up our sleep just as much as it does our kids. So limit everyone's screen time. Have a charging center. I talked about that before, where everyone's technology goes after a certain time and it stays there till morning. we want to establish having like parts of the day that are screen free, right? There are no screens allowed at meal times, right? If the whole family is sitting together, the screens go away. One screen at a time. This is a big one in my house. If we're sitting together and watching a movie, I don't want to see phones out. One screen at a time. You want to make other activities easy and rewarding, right? We want to give our kids stuff to do, again, that boosts creativity and imagination and social interaction. We want to make those readily accessible for the kids and rewarding. Screens should not be in children's bedrooms. Screens can be used as a reward, and we want to make sure that our screen time rules are explicit. We want our kids to know when they start, when they turn the video game on, they are going to have 30 minutes or 15 minutes or an hour or whatever your rule is. We want them to say we want to state explicitly what the rules are, and we want to stay consistent with those rules, right? There's nothing wrong with doing something special once in a while. But most of the time, we want to stay consistent. If your rule is an hour a day, keep that rule to an hour a day. All right. So that's it for my preaching on screen time and sleep and exercise and nutrition. I have some comments that people sent in ahead of time, so I'll address those. And Melissa, is it possible for people to type questions into the chat?
Yes, they can type into the chat.
Awesome. So if I can figure out how to read those. Sorry, guys, I'm
You can always read them to you also.
Okay. All right. So if anybody has questions or comments, go ahead and put those up in the chat. And here we go. And then I will address those. In the meantime, we had somebody ask about listening and following instructions for 3-year-olds when they do things they know they shouldn't. So 3 is tricky, right? 3-year-olds need to be not only told, but shown what their behavior should look like. So you want to model it for them. If you are trying to get them to keep their hands to themselves, to have gentle hands, then you want to model that behavior for them, show them what it looks like, show them what it doesn't look like. And you want to make it fun, okay? Somebody wrote in consistency, especially coming off the weekend when they may be allowed to play longer on screens or have eaten out more. So a couple thoughts on that. One is when you go from the school week to the weekend, you don't want to stray too far, especially with sleep. You want to keep your sleep times no more than 2 hours different. So if your bedtime is 10 o'clock during the week, you do not want to have them going to bed anywhere after midnight. You really want to keep it as close as possible to be able to have the body continue that sleep cycle. The other part of changing things up on the weekends is we want to be really explicit about it. Tell the kids, hey, this weekend, you guys are going to be staying up late. We're going to be eating at a fancy restaurant, or we're going to have a smorgasbord, or, whatever you're doing. And this is a special thing that we're doing for the weekend. But don't forget, come Monday, it's going to be back to the typical menu, or it's going to be back to the regular bedtime. If you set your kids up knowing that this is going to be a special occurrence and that it will be going back to your typical plan, then it's going to be a lot easier to have those smoother transitions. So somebody said, how to get my toddler to eat normal food. She's not interested in most food. Your kid is going to eat what you give them, with obviously exceptions on strong tasting foods that most kids are not going to like until they're older. If you're putting it in front of them and that is their option, that's what they're going to eat. If you constantly go, oh, okay, and throw them a chicken nugget, that's what they're going to eat. And they'll hold out. And our kids can hold out way longer than we can, right? I also got a how to stop my toddler from sucking her fingers. Have tried cream, but it wasn't successful. So most toddlers will be motivated by like being the big kid. So maybe you get your toddler a special bracelet or a special ring that only big kids can wear, and something that is kind of in the way of sucking fingers, right? Or every time they see they raise their hand to suck the fingers, they have a visual of the bracelet or the ring, and oh, I want to be a big kid. I don't want to do that anymore. Giving them a reward for positive behavior is going to work better than giving a punishment or a negative consequence like the cream for a negative behavior. It's always easier to increase a behavior than it is to decrease one. So think about anytime you want to see a behavior change, what do you want the behavior to look like? Reinforce that. Okay, way easier than punishing when the behavior doesn't look like what you want. My toddler cries for everything. How to change that habit? Ignore them. You're giving them attention when they cry, so they know to cry to get your attention. Toddlers are experts at training us, right? So we're going to break that pattern. Oh, I'm sorry, you're crying. And then, walk away or turn, do whatever you're doing. But don't give them the attention. How to help when your kids feel left out. Oh yeah, particularly when hearing or seeing friends and neighbors doing things they're not allowed to do. Yeah, this is a tough one, especially when you're really working on sleep and you're trying to get your kid in bed and it's light out and you can hear the neighborhood kids playing. That sucks. It sucks for the kids and it sucks for the parents to deal with that. Try to find something that they get to do, something that's special about them, and focus on that. Well, you might not be playing, tag out in the yard, but you get to snuggle with mommy and read this story. Or when you wake up in the morning, you have chocolate chip pancakes or, something. Think about something positive, something special, and try to draw the attention to that. Listening and following instructions in a 3-year-old, again, you need to model things for them. They're going to hear like 2 words and then the rest is like meh, 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 meh. So show them what it is you want them to be doing. Oh, we're picking up toys, so I'm going to go over here and I'm going to pick up the toys and then we're going to do it together. So that will be a lot more helpful than just telling them and expecting them to listen. How much screen time per day can a 4-year-old have? So the American Academy of Pediatrics says 2 hours or less. My thought is as they grow up, they're going to have more screen time than they need. So unless they absolutely have to, don't start it now. Little kids shouldn't have phones. They shouldn't have iPads. Yes, sometimes as parents, we need to put the kid on something so that we can get something done. But I really encourage you to find things that are not screen related that will hold their attention. And when it's not possible, then use the screens, but use them judiciously. Somebody wrote terrible threes. I'm not sure what specifically you want me to talk about as far as terrible threes. I know that we're indoctrinated that the twos are bad, but everyone I know said the threes were worse, including with my own children. That was my experience. Threes just rough, right? Try to get as much sleep as you can. Try to get your kid to get as much sleep as you can, and just know that soon enough they'll be 4, and some of that stuff is going to get a little bit easier. Helping to teach good boundaries with phones and social media, and how to know if your child is addicted to screens. That is a really good area to talk about. So the first thing we can do is kind of assess our own relationship with social media. And if you question that you are spending too much time on social media, you probably are, and your kids are seeing that. So see, there's chats in here. So you want to evaluate yourself first and see where you can change, and be really explicit about that with the kids. Wow, I find that I'm like zoning and like scrolling through Facebook, and I don't want to spend my time doing this. Let's put the technology down and play a board game. Or, let's go paint our nails, or let's go build something, right? Be explicit about moving the technology away and replacing it with something of high value. And usually you spending time with your kids is high value. So I think that's a good way to start with healthy boundaries with phones and social media. Okay, the chats. I can see these now. Max recommended amount of screen time for teens per day. So that's an excellent question. Again, American Academy of Pediatrics, they changed what they have been saying about that, and are now not counting the time kids spend on technology for school. Unfortunately, if your kid is spending, 5 hours a day in school, and then another 2.5 hours a day doing homework, and that's all on the screen, right? Should they have more? No, it's terrible for them. But are we going to just take the technology away from them? That's no better, right? They're going to hate us and be miserable. So there isn't a maximum recommended amount of screen time. You know your child best. If your teen is doing all of the things they're supposed to be doing, they're talking to you, and they are doing their chores, and they're getting their homework done, then allowing for 2 hours a day screen time is great. There's not a whole lot of hours left in the day after they do everything. I do recommend taking all the screens away at least an hour before bedtime, so that their brains can calm down and fall asleep. Another comment is, my 3-year-old fights going to bed at night. He's tired but wants to play, read more books, etc. Yeah, that's a tricky one. So having a very consistent bedtime routine is the key. And I would talk to them about it ahead of time. Say, this is what it's going to look like. Maybe even have a little chart that says we brush our teeth, we go potty, we put our jammies on, we do this. We read books for 10 minutes. We snuggle for 5 with the lights out, and then we're done, and have it really explicit for them and remind them. And they're always going to want more. They're always going to be overtired, which makes it harder for them to fall asleep. Just remind them that when they wake up in the morning, they get to play again, but yeah, that's a tricky age, getting the kids to sleep. Um, how can I stop or help siblings to stop arguing? Remind them that they're a team and they are always going to have each other. And, I would rather my kids team up together against me and my partner than fighting with each other, right? We want to really foster that team sense between siblings. Sometimes having them, when emotions aren't high, having them discuss what are the things that they argue about, and maybe making a house rule. Okay, we're no longer allowed to argue about TV shows or whatever it is. So that just to get them to start thinking about what are these ridiculous things that we argue about, because chances are it's not an important thing, right? So bringing their awareness to that, and sometimes saying something along the lines of, you guys talk to each other like you don't even like each other, and you love each other, so that doesn't make sense, and just drawing their awareness to that. That can be really important. One of my favorite sibling arguing things is I've seen parents get a giant t-shirt. Depends on the kids, but if you can put them both in the shirt and they have to, like hug it out or wear the shirt until they can calm down. As long as they're not physically fighting, that can be a funny and kind of stress reducing way of bringing attention to the fact that they're arguing again. That is the last question or comment in the chat. Is there anything else that I can answer or discuss? All right, Melissa, did you have anything?
It's probably gonna be dark here. Sorry, I got dark here. I think that's it.
Awesome.
Except for making myself be able to fall asleep when I've got too much on my, what I do is I email myself. I'm trying to get the things off my, so I'll lay in bed and I just email them. And then I'm looking at the screen, but I got to get it off my mind.
Try it with a Post-it. Keep a Post-it
Yeah.
and a pencil by your bed. Get rid of the screen. The problems and the thoughts, they'll be there tomorrow.
I will.
Throw them on a piece of paper. Well, thanks for listening to me, everybody. I appreciate it, and hope that I've been able to help with some of this stuff for you.
Thank you.
All right.
See you next month. Bye-bye.